Well, here we are on the verge of Indigenous round for 2017. We're back for the second time this week with the Titus and Sergio Variety Hour podcast. I'm Sergio Paradise, and here he is, the star of Top Gun 2. It's Titus O'Reilly.
I've also got a head cold today, and so do you.
Yeah, we're a bit crook this morning for Thursday.
We're going to use that as our excuse for what we say later on. We'll say, I was actually on some pretty heavy medication.
I was about to say we can blame the drugs. Normally it's just the whiskey, but today we can blame, what do they call them? Prescription painkillers.
See, I like when people say things like that as excuse, when most of the reason for someone saying the wrong thing and stuffing up is an underdevelopment frontal lobe on their brain, but no one ever wants to say
just
that.
Basic stupidity.
Yeah. Look, I'm actually a bit of a moron. So I say a lot of
sure, the drugs don't help.
Yeah, but I say a lot of stupid things to try and get a laugh from people, and this one's really come back to bite me. I tell you what, I sometimes wonder what it's like to be, in the middle of a Twitter hate storm.
Oh, yeah.
And last night, ABC2, Jules Schiller and Tegan Higginbotham did the...
I copped a whack last night.
Did the Liverpool-Sydney FC game, and God, they copped it. I didn't actually see the show, I kind of saw the reaction, and I know Jules Schiller a bit because I've done ABC Grandstand a bit, so I sent him a message today saying, well done bringing the whole soccer community, offside.
Yeah.
It was a bit of an overreaction by the soccer community, of which I'm a soccer fan and an A-Lug club member, so I feel like I can talk with some authority, even though people sometimes say to me, soccer fans sometimes say, well, you just like the AFL. I'm like, well, no, I like both, but I kind of see the flaws in both. And the soccer community, partly because they have over the years been often marginalised or criticised as a whole for the sins of a few, but they are very sensitive.
Do have a chip on their shoulder sometimes.
And so some of them were saying about this show yesterday, which I didn't see, so for all I know,
it was the pre-match thing, I think, on ABC
went half an hour.
Yeah, it wasn't, they weren't commentating the game.
And no one else wanted to take the game or do it. So these guys stepped in to fill in. They thought, we'll do a comedic bit and do a new thing, right? Well, that didn't go down well, apparently. But one of the things I liked most of all was a few of the comments I saw numerous times where people go, well, this is a disgrace to our sport, and it set the code back years. A few people said, and I'm like, it's a half-hour show on ABC2 that most people would never
that didn't even know was on. Yeah.
And seems, and they're saying it set us back years. Like
bad management, nothing to do with it, but
but so anyways, it's a slight overreaction to it all. I don't think it quite did that, but I did feel sorry for it, because the thing about comedy is when it goes bad or people don't like it, they go really hard at you.
And Twitter, you can really cop a whack on Twitter.
Well, my advice to soccer fans / football fans, whatever you want to call it, depending on who you want to upset, is Codes having terrible comedic shows based on them is kind of a badge of honour, because the AFL have got the bounce.
Yes.
They
got the footy show.
They got the footy show. NRL's got their own footy show. They've got the Matty John special. So really you haven't arrived
as Matty John special.
You haven't arrived as a code in Australia until you have a comedy show that you don't like.
Yeah, exactly.
They should be wearing this as a badge of honour.
And you're right. And when sometimes though, when the codes actually get good shows, they get sort of overlooked because of the poor. Like for soccer / football, you've got Santo, Sam and Ed, who do podcasts and a TV show.
Well, a few people said, why didn't they do it? Yeah, a few people said, why didn't they do it? But I don't think they wanted to do it.
No, they probably, wake up to that.
Well, the thing is, Jules Schiller's usually very funny, so I don't know why it went so badly, having not seen it. But, so I don't know how fair the reaction was.
Yeah.
Or whether it just wasn't what people expect.
From what I can gather, that the show sounded like it had been thrown together at about a minute before they went to air. And they had, and I know a lot of the soccer fans were upset that there were no fancy graphics and stuff, but all they had were two whiteboards with stick-on faces for the players.
The ABC for you. There's budget cuts.
Budget cuts, exactly.
They're lucky it was in colour. So anyway, that was a kind of... so I did feel a bit for them, because that must be not fun to go through. I've never bombed completely on stage, but I remember telling a joke once that bombed completely. And, it is a weird feeling.
Oh, it is. I mean, there is that phrase of hearing crickets. And it is true. If you say something in front of a crowd on stage and it dies, I mean, it's not a coincidence that it's described as dying because there is just the silence is deafening.
What I do enjoy is on social media when people reach out to you. Apropos nothing, just the blue, to just tell you you're not funny.
Yeah.
Like someone goes to that trouble.
You kind of would, it's great that they've, that.
Thanks for engaging.
They've gone to this trouble of typing this message into their phone just to tell you how unfunny you are.
I got one the other day that said, I just want you to know. Yeah. And I thought, here we go. It was an email. So even more trouble, right? Yeah. They went onto my site, went into the contact form, filled it out and said, I just want you to know nobody thinks you're funny.
So he's speaking on behalf of the entire population.
He's done a survey of everyone. It's a bit of a blow.
Yeah. Nobody. Not one person.
Yeah.
I like that.
Which I know that humor's subjective, so to many people, me or anyone else, are often not funny. Like those things I don't find funny that I know other people find incredibly funly. So that's kind of the way it works. Yeah, like the bounce. But that's a funny thing I find. Another guy wrote to me and goes, I just wanted you to know that I personally think you've never said anything funny. And it was like almost a politely worded email.
But mate, you've obviously read a fair bit.
Well, that's the thing. He said, this person follows me on Twitter and kind of gone out of his way to just give me a performance review, and then said to me. And I felt like roadmate, but I didn't. Well, that's a real shame because I sort of started this whole thing to impress you.
Yeah. Well, it's like you got that very short, sharp one last week that says, "You're slipping, Titus."
Yeah, well, that's actually true. That's fair, honest criticism. Yeah. Probably because I've devoted the first bit of this podcast talking about internet feedback. So that is the side I'm slipping. People who don't think we're slipping, Serge, are our supporters who bring us this. So big thank you again to our supporters, especially the new ones that have come on board. And
they're still coming on board every day.
They are,
it's
and
great.
It is helping us do a whole bunch of things. And we're currently working on our show for the end of the year and doing a bunch of other stuff. So there'll be news coming out, and that's all done because of our supporters and the fact we regularly do this twice a week, barring illness.
Yes, and we've had to drag ourselves here.
We have today. Yeah. Today's a hero's effort. Last podcast,
yes,
I said that I was incredibly impressed that we had our first female field umpire last week, and no one in the media or of prominence had said anything sexist.
Yeah.
And it only
I thought you might have been going off a bit early there.
I did say in the time that I think this is
early days. Yeah.
So fingers crossed we'll get something. Yeah. So we had a couple. I saw John Ralph from the Herald Sun. He did a tweet saying he watched Elaney all day.
Yeah.
Which is creepy in itself.
Yeah, I was about to say he just had the binoculars on Elaney for the entire match.
Didn't see that. And he said he felt uncomfortable watching her.
Well, probably because you were just watching her. Yeah, that's
you felt uncomfortable. She felt uncomfortable. And said because she made a lot of mistakes and he was worried that would set back and this was his attempt in a nice way to say that setback could set back the female umpiring cause because she didn't have a great game. Now, I'd have to say, well, no other umpire got scrutinised like that by any of the media or, to my knowledge, ever does. And then when you look at it, I mean, anyone that saw, for instance, the Melbourne game last week, I tell you what, I doubt I watched her game. She wasn't any worse than those three. In fact, she was probably... Now, there was a bit about how she couldn't bounce the ball very well. That was a big criticism. But, I've seen that before too.
Well, you see it at the start of every second game, basically, or every second quarter.
But she would have been nervous because what other umpire makes their debut and is on the front cover of the Record, as she was, and he's on all the media. Talk about scrutiny. I mean... it was like a new player playing. Like she had that level of interest in it.
It was like when Jack Watts was rushed into the Melbourne team against Collingwood when he was still at school.
And everyone thought he was going to win, be like the next Wayne Carey.
And he's 17, he's doing his HSC. And as soon as he ran onto the field, I think Nick Maxwell, Steele Sidebottom, and another Collingwood player have just absolutely buried him.
Was it Didak or something? I can't remember.
It was Didak, I think.
They just smashed him.
Absolutely buried him into the dirt.
And he's never recovered.
No.
So that was kind of one bit of it with the media. And look, I don't watch her close. I didn't stare at her all day, but I did.
Do you reckon Johnny Ralph would follow Razor Ray with that
I'll tell you.
keen sort of... It's almost stalking.
I know. Yeah. I watched her all day.
Closely.
She wasn't umpiring that day. She
just watched her go from her car to Woolworths inside her front door.
I almost watched her all day. There's always an element of creepiness when footy writers, not singling him out, but just generally, I think, talk about anything to do with women. Yeah. It was a bit like when Rebecca Madden first did the footy show,
yeah.
And they all acted like they'd never met a woman before. They're all like tiptoeing around it, and since they've found out that she'll basically
give as good as she gets,
or more enable their sexist behaviour, they've relaxed a lot. So anyway, that was one thing that happened, and then a West Australian football president came out on Twitter. Always a good idea to vent your views
Twitter
on
Twitter. And on Facebook too, I think.
Yeah, so he came out and his name's Dale Simmons. He's club president for the Cervantes Tiger Sharks, one of your favourite clubs. He launched a social media tirade in the direction of the 25-year-old over her last match. He said she failed to pay a mark in the first quarter less than 10 metres away from her with a clear view. Well, I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
If she doesn't do 5 or 6 of them a game, she's not living up to the standards set by the rest of her colleagues. And then he says, does the dopey mole, which is a term of affection in WA, I'm assuming, but benefit of the doubt, know that you're allowed to take it one-handed if you want. The deliberate she paid against Darling when he handballed 30 metres down the line and the ball took a wrong turn, went out, shows she's a long way off. Her bouncing is another story. Now, that was what he said.
I've just got to say, if this bloke had just come out and said something vaguely stupid like, oh, women shouldn't umpire because they're, I don't know,
they should be at home cooking.
Yeah, or they're not fit enough to keep up or something.
Their bodies could die.
You just ignore it. But the fact that he's called her a dopey mole takes it to a whole new level of hilarity, I think.
I think the whole thing is, like, once again, singling out her and paying attention to her when, I mean, none of the umpires who umpired that Melbourne game, and I'm only singling that out because that's most recent in my memory, there's been about 10 games this year, not involving Melbourne, but involving other teams where I've thought, this is subpar. Yeah. None of these guys should be umpiring AFL ever again. So to single it out. But the other thing, Kathy Vanderweed, a board member of the Perth Football Club, she blasted him and came out. And then Gillen came out and called the mark sexist, which, you'd have just fact.
You'd have to
not
agree
really
with that.
And he says people who hold these attitudes should not be leaders in football clubs. Now, I'm not really, this is not in any way condoning it, I'm not really surprised that a footy club president is not the most enlightened. This just shows you how far we've got to go, though. I'm not condoning it all, but it doesn't I'm actually surprised that most people in the footy community, I think, have actually come pretty quickly to wanting the AFL women's in their local clubs. You're very involved in local club land, but the people I talk to who run clubs, and there's a few that often ask me to come and speak to them and stuff like that.
It's massive.
They're the opposite of sexist. They're saying this is the future lifeblood, part of the lifeblood of our club, is we're going to have women playing, we're going to have the young girls playing, the young boys playing, we're going to have the men and the women's side. It's going to mean the whole community can come and be at our club and use the rooms and
in a practical sense, there's more money goes through the club.
There's more money. It's more. It's more a social community hub. So these people are the dinosaurs. This is where they're going. The problem is they're in positions of power.
Dave Simmons or Simo.
Simo.
The Cervantes Tiger Sharks. Do you know where Cervantes is? Is that?
It's in WA.
It's not a suburb of Perth, or is it
I don't know.
the coast somewhere?
I've got to admit my ignorance on that.
Yeah.
I just know it's in WA, which I believe is to the west of Melbourne.
Even to the west of South Australia.
Are you a fan of WA?
I can't say I've been very often to WA. I've been there once.
When was that?
20-odd years ago.
Oh, really?
Spent a lovely week in Perth one afternoon.
Boom dish. I've been to Perth quite a few. I like Perth. We're going to go there later. We're going to go there later in the year.
We are. I thought it was a bit like Shepparton by the sea. The first time I saw it.
It's a bit busier than that now. They got some, but no, I'm looking forward to going.
Some great bars in Freo.
I'm taking you to Perth and Adelaide this year.
Yeah.
Places that you have bagged but not been for 20 years. I'm going to have to
sneak into.
It's going to be
and hopefully sneak out of in one piece.
Hey, I don't like your chances.
No.
So anyway, that was it. So look, I kind of factor that in as a sad event, but kind of inevitable. I'm glad not more people have been doing it. But I mean, seriously, give her a few weeks. You know, like
I did. The one thing Simo did say that did raise a slight smile was when he said, "Have you ever seen an umpire change their mind? Well, you will now." Implying the great stereotype of changeable women.
Yeah.
And I thought, Simo, you're on a roll. Mate. You open with Dopey Mole and you go straight into that one.
He's like just got the sort of 1950s stand-up comedic talent,
When we go to Perth, can we track Simo down and get him on the show?
Get him on stage just to...
as our warm-up act.
Yeah, that's right. How to lose an audience in 5 minutes. You could just imagine he's one of those guys that would have all those jokes.
Yeah.
Take my wife, please.
Please.
It's like...
He'd be like Graham Kennedy, the president in the club movie, remember?
That's right. That's who he looks up to and tries to model himself on.
So nice work, Simo. I don't think you've covered yourself all the Tiger Sharks in glory there, pal.
Well, I'm glad the AFL actually came out and just called it sexist, because that's what it is. The umpire's got enough problem, and I can tell you what, female umpires is not their major, not one of them. So anyway, when you think, though, something like that happens, occasionally, Serge, it does make you think, what world do we live? Like, what has Australia become? This saddens me because I'm usually so proud of my fellow countrymen and women. And then a story comes on that reinvigorates my faith in my fellow countrymen. I know where you're going
with this, and it's a story that should warm the cockles of your heart.
This stirred me. This made me very happy that the silent majority of Australians are wonderful people who know what's important and know what's not. And so what's happened is Qantas, our national carrier, have announced they're running a competition where members of the public will name the airline's 8 new Dreamliners.
And these are their new super big planes that
go to London and stuff. So those sort of
non-stop to London, I think.
So when you think about it, asking the public to name something on the internet,
just
never gone wrong.
No, that's not fraught with possible danger.
You know the thing that annoys me about this? Remember they had that Boaty McBoatface, and then they didn't name that boat that, which is like terrible. There should be a law, and I know what I'm saying, a piece of legislation that passes both houses of Parliament, that if you do an online name competition, you are bound by law to follow whatever the public vote for. You can't do it and then go, oh, well, you all said Boaty McBoatface, so we're going to call it Sir Richard Attenborough.
Yeah. So,
why did you even have it then?
It's like whenever there's a new gorilla born at the Melbourne Zoo, the Herald Sun always has a competition.
Yeah.
And what if, I think, the public named Missouri, which is an African name. I mean, this is 20 years old. I think Missouri just passed away, sadly, last week.
He did overseas.
But what if they'd run that and the Herald Sun voting public wanted to call him Tomo was up and
Yeah,
going.
that's right.
Or
Bruce.
Yeah, Alan. The gorilla.
Alan the gorilla. I love it.
Yeah, they should. You're right. Legislation should be passed.
Yeah, otherwise don't do it. If you're
Yeah.
not going to do it, don't tease us with these things. So I hope Qantas aren't doing this here because Qantas has won. 8,000 entries have come in.
Right.
And the leading name to name one of these planes by far at the top of the voting is David Boon. How good is that?
That is just that just sums up everything that's great about this country. We honour a bloke not because he was one of Australia's greatest and toughest opening batsmen, but the fact that he
or one of the greatest mustaches of history.
But the fact that, and everyone knows this, he drank 52 cans of beer on a flight from Sydney to London.
And the thing is, a lot of people don't realise the great thing about that story is he drank 52 cans, smashing any record that had ever set before. And a lot of people think he stopped at 52 because he was drunk, but that's not true. He found out there were free spirits on the plane too. So he said, I might get off the beers.
I've had enough of the beers.
Yeah,
I'm starting to feel a bit bloated.
52, cruising at 40,000 feet. 52 beers will make you feel a bit bloated. The other thing is Booney. One of the reasons I've looked up to him all my life is still the same playing weight. Not many athletes can say that they've remained at the exact as fit as the day they left.
He can still fit into his creams.
Yeah, his debut cream uniform.
And the other great thing I love about that Birdie story is that Jeff Lawson had to take him through customs in a wheelchair.
Yeah, that's right.
And for that reason, the Australian voting public want to name the Dreamliner David Boon.
I'll be furious if Qantas don't.
Yeah, somebody suggested it should be, Charles Ulm or something, who was a very famous aviator, and I think they've already got.
Who?
I think they've already got planes named after Kingsford Smith.
But there's 8 new Dreamliners.
They've got to have one. I was thinking about it. Who is a great Australian who probably hasn't already been honoured in this way? And I was thinking, how about you get on board the Dreamliner and the pilot says, please welcome aboard the Thomas Angove. You aware of Thomas Angove's
No
work?
idea.
He invented the goon bag.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, the wine cask.
That is the greatest invention Australians have had.
I know it's probably...
I know we invented penicillin, but the goon bag is above it.
Yeah, and, Wi-Fi and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the bionic ear. Yeah, but the bloke who invented the wine cask / goon bag, he's got to be up there.
Oh, right.
Might be a bit similar to the Boonie.
I like that. We got 8, so you got 8 to name. So I think Boonie's one.
Boonie's leading.
Your wine, just goon bag. Can we just call it a goon bag? I think Wayne Carey should have one named after him.
Yeah.
No glass allowed on that plane though. Who else would you give it to? What about Cliff Young?
Cliffy? I can paint a big pair of gumboots on the side of the plane.
And his plane... It takes 5 days to get to London, but it does get there.
From Sydney to Melbourne.
From Sydney to Melbourne, it takes
5 days.
Just as long as Cliff Young did.
Yeah, but it finishes in Melbourne at the Doncaster shopping town.
So there's heaps of people you want to get into.
Heaps of great Australians.
So many.
But I think Booney is leading at this stage. Somebody said it should be a Shane Warne. I said, I think Booney's got him covered, for that sort of thing. Because Warney keeps some of his best work for when he gets off the plane,
My view of Warne is like a guy who he won so many tests. He was such a great player. It's like he built up this bank of goodwill by the time he finished that was almost unprecedented.
And will never be used up.
But it's like he's seen exactly. It's so big that it almost you think, he could never use up all his goodwill, no matter what he does for the rest of his days. And he's seen that as like the plot to Brewster's Millions. He's gone, you know what? I'm going to see if I can chew through all this goodwill.
Milk this forever.
And get to the point where you all start to actually not like me like you used to. And it's almost like 10 years on or whatever it is.
Yeah. Oh, it's at least 10.
He's well into it.
Yeah. But it's still, as you say, it's a never-ending well almost that he dips his toe into. But can we just say that we wholeheartedly support this move to name the Dreamliner the David Boon?
I will give Qantas a massive tick if they do this.
Yeah, and they've got to paint a big mo on the front of the plane as well.
But the PR would be terrific. People would love to get on the David Boon.
Of course they would.
This is the thing I never got, like, with the one in Britain where they didn't call that Arctic...
the Boaty McBoatface.
Didn't call it Boaty McBoatface. I think another group of scientists who built a submarine or something, which was for scientific, they named theirs Boaty McBoatface or something. And so that's now in the media all the time because people have an interest. The interest that would have been ongoing to Boaty McBoatface.
Oh, there's no question.
The public is not wrong on this. Like a David Boon plane, how thrilled would you be if you were going to London, you get on, it's the David Boon plane.
It's the Boonie.
Yeah, it's win-win.
Yeah.
The AFL have decided to tinker with the match review panel system in the coming weeks.
Really?
Now,
they don't tinker with the rules, do they?
Unlike normally, they've given us warning that they're about to do a bit of tinkering.
Right.
Secondly, it's going to happen mid-year, which never usually happens with the match review panel. If it's operating terribly, they just let it keep operating terribly.
We'll look at it again in January.
Yeah, that's right. So what they're looking at now, and this came out of a few incidences that have been occurring recently, especially a few involving Northern Melbourne and Ben Cunnington last Sunday, which is the jumper punches and the stomach punches.
Yeah.
Which they've now said that they're going to look at bringing in some punishments to be able to suspend people instead of just fine them for doing this.
But couldn't they be suspended anyway?
Stop doing logic for a second, Serge.
Sorry.
You know, I know that's where you're going. So then they're saying they want to get rid of punching in the game, right?
All punching. So they might have stepped over the mark there.
So they're going to change the match review panel grading table be worked on. And they're saying that fines are not stopping because, you know, people are willing to pay money to punch Bernie Vince in the stomach, basically, is what they're saying.
Yeah.
So we need to suspend them. So that's what he's come out and said. Now, a match review panel member, Jimmy Bartell, called on the league...
Brownlow medalist. Bartell.
Called on the league to add a special category for non-football acts, such as punches, to make the system more black and white. Bartell has called on the league to introduce greater powers for the $5 million panel, saying penalties for a punch should be black and white. A special category was needed for non-football acts, he said. So basically, the thing for me is, what's striking then? Like, what's striking?
Oh, right. Yeah, that's a point.
Like, a punch is a punch. Like, the fact you're doing it to someone's stomach or you've got a handful of jumper as you punch them in the mouth. In the chin or the mouth.
Yeah.
How's that not just striking? I don't understand the...
Why can't... your point being, why can't the match review panel say, let's say Trent Cotchin, the jumper punch, say, he's been reported for striking. That's what he's saying. For striking.
Now, they'll say, it's a much higher penalty.
Well...
And they're going to try to downgrade to make this still okay. But to me...
Are they trying to overcomplicate things?
Yeah, just say to everyone, bad luck, you might get 2 weeks if you punch someone in the stomach. Yeah. You know what will happen overnight? No more punching in the stomach. Why introduce a whole new... This is the typical AFL thing. Like, instead of enforcing existing rules...
Yeah, we'll create new ones.
Yeah, we'll create new ones.
And complicate it more. And, I mean, as someone said to us on Twitter the other day, isn't it such an AFL thing to come out and change the rules on punching on the same day that two blokes have not been suspended for punching?
That's the thing. I just don't get why it's not striking.
Oh, you're right. I mean...
and I know there's a bigger penalty with that, but bad luck. Like, you want to get it out of the game, then no one will do it.
And you accuse me of bringing logic into this.
I don't really. It's just, it does amaze me that this is the thing. And this idea of non-football acts, like, I just don't think they need it. I just think it's kind
non-football acts, what,
dancing.
Irish dancing, a bit of Irish jig work down the back line. Yeah, that, you get pinged there. Actually, that's a non-football act.
The whole Brisbane Lions would be in trouble if they started penalising people for not playing football. So it's a strange one that they've brought in, and I don't really understand. It's a sad day to see the jumper punch go, because I know as a kid, the only reason I ever wanted to play footballers. I like punching people while holding their jumper. So, how are we going to attract the kids in?
Yeah, I know.
If they can't punch people.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because we know that the kids follow on from their idols up the top, and if there's no jumper punching at the top level, it will filter down.
It'll die. The sport will die.
Yeah, the sport will die, and the jumper punch will be dead.
Anyway, I mean, we've said it before. It's hilarious how the jumper punch is even still around anyway.
Yeah.
And has been for so long. Like, it's such a bizarre...
Yeah, and it's like, years ago when Barry Hall king hit Brent Staker.
Yeah.
If he'd just had a little bit of his jumper.
I actually caught his jumper on the way through. So anyway, that's been a kind of an interesting one that's popped in this week, which I just think, well, that's just silly.
But what'll be interesting is this weekend, if it happens again, how will the match review panel handle it?
It hasn't come in these new rules, right?
There's no new rules.
So basically what they're saying is until that comes in the next few weeks, get your jumper punching out of your system.
But I don't think it's going to come in. Didn't Gillen say they're not going to change the rules?
No,
he first said we will, and then it was now we
now
won't.
They're changing the penalties, basically. This is what Simon Lethlean said, so who's the football operations manager. So
they can never just use common sense and say, okay, from now on, you punch someone, you get a week.
Yeah.
And if it's really bad, you'll get 2, right? And everyone will go, yeah, well, that makes sense. I know we're going to have a review, and we'll have non-football acts, and another level of bureaucracy.
And there's striking, but then you had their jumper and you had the thing is, to me, it's always just been striking.
Well, see, now...
Striking is striking.
Yeah, well, now striking might be just the forearm or the elbow, as opposed to punching, which is a fist, a clenched fist.
This is like bringing around jumper punches and stomach punches.
So you won't be able to... What about a jumper elbow rather than a jumper punch?
What about a suplex? Technically, that's not outlawed, so why can't you suplex people? If there's one thing I learned watching wrestling growing up, there's nothing more devastating than a suplex. Can you DDT someone?
Yeah, a Chinese burn.
Chinese burn. Oh, that brings me back. Chinese burn's probably considered racist these days.
Probably is.
I don't really know the origin of why they call it that. But
no, I don't either. But it was when...
They call it? What do they call it in China? Just a burn. We'll have to ask Koshi about that. He'll know.
A Chinese burn in China, I think, means a completely different thing.
Right. So there you go. So speaking of striking, here's a segue, Serge. See that? The cricket pay war has escalated.
Oh.
Yeah.
I actually hope that this goes the whole hog.
This blows up.
Oh, I hope it just explodes.
I tell you what, the Cricket Australia's biggest worry in this is that the cricket season doesn't happen and no one really notices. Some people suddenly go, how good is it not listening to the Channel 9 commentary team?
And sure, I mean, the Boxing Day test, I don't think it'd matter if there was no game on.
It'd be like horse racing. Get drunk.
You just go to the bull ring anyway. Nobody would care.
They have one of their biggest crowds in years.
I still get 80,000 there.
Well, everyone's probably bought the tickets already, so there you go.
Right.
The thing about it that's escalated is obviously the Cricketers Association and Cricket Australia are obviously both at loggerheads in that I think they genuinely hate each other.
They won't
now.
even
The
talk
people
to each other.
hate each other.
Yeah.
It's not like and they couldn't be further apart. But there seems no goodwill at all.
No.
And I do think, weirdly, Cricket Australia have played this really badly.
Oh, I think so
They've
too.
made the Australian Cricket Association look reasonable and like who want to talk it through.
Yeah.
And they've just gone, you know what, we'll just sack the lot of you come July 30 if you don't sign the deal we want, which no one's going to,
It's a lockout in old-fashioned terms.
And the thing I keep saying is, this is not about the David Warners and Steve Smith who are going to make their money no matter what. This is about the majority of players at Sheffield Shield and Big Bash level who earn okay money, but some of them not even that great money, and have a very small window of their career and then have to go and find a completely different job after that, when they spend a lot of their time not skilling themselves up. So it's not for the David Warners and the Steve Smith. Like, the reason they're doing the media around it is because, you put up other people, no one knows who they are. So they're in there battling more for their lesser paid...
The lower
rungs,
I still think Dave Warner should have been advised maybe not to make a statement while he was parking his Lamborghini.
I'm not saying there's not some some looks to it that might be a bit, as they say in Spinland, the optics weren't great.
The optics.
The thing that's happened now, though, is to escalate this significantly is the Australian Cricket Association have said, all right, you lock us out on June 30.
Yeah.
We're going to set up a new business that will, because at the moment under the contract, Cricket Australia, under the current arrangements, own basically the IP rights to the current players.
Yeah. So if they want to do a commercial for KFC or something, they can use a picture of Steve Smith or Dave Warner in that, and the players have nothing to do with it.
That's right.
They own their brand and their IP.
They own their,
and
so
their
they
image.
can do it. So by taking a salary from Cricket Australia, you basically sign away your IP rights so they can use you in ads and all that sort of stuff.
And AFL players went through a similar thing a few years ago.
And look, they get compensated for that. That's part of what the compensation is under the thing. Yeah. Now, what Australian Cricket Association have said, all right, you lock us out on, if you lock us out on June 30,
which is not that far away,
we're going to set up our own
new business
that will own the IP of all the players will sign their IP over to this new company, and it will manage their likenesses, which means straight away come July 30, if they get locked out, Steve Smith can go and do a Virgin ad instead of a Qantas ad. He can do all that. They can do all the rivals. They can go to instead of KFC, they
sponsor
can
whoever
do
they like.
McDonald's or whatever. They can, and they'll do that to. And then when the negotiations, if they ever come back on, they'll go, well, we've now got our own company. Why would we and charge them through the roof to actually buy it back? Yeah. So that's just it's quite a clever way of saying, well,
I think it's very
giving the middle finger basically to Cricket Australia and saying,
of the on all the uniforms now they've got the black and yellow Commonwealth Bank thing. Yeah. But in August, if Steve Smith's out there spruiking the NAB or something, this is going to make things very uncomfortable between Cricket Australia and the Commonwealth Bank, who pay plenty of money to have that badge on the cricketers' outfits.
Well, that's the thing. They'll go, well, hang on, you just steered this into the, off the road, and now we're the ones hurting as well.
Yeah, and our sponsorship deal, we want to make good, or we whether it's $5 million a year.
So it's getting nasty.
We ain't going to pay that.
Do you think David Warner will be in tears that he won't get to watch the blackest of blacks on his OLED TV?
I reckon he's already got a couple. I reckon he's already got a couple in his joint.
Do you think? Yeah, but
he's got one in the back of his Lamborghini.
He's got to find a new supplier that can guarantee him some blacks. That's what he wants. The contrast is amazing.
The front bar at the Marrickville Hotel is always a good spot to pick up a cheap telly.
I wonder where he's going to watch his cartoons. So anyway, that's escalated. Who owns our IP rights, Serge? I just suddenly realised. No one. They're not worth anything. At this point. You can't own something that's not valued.
There you go. We'll crowdfund it.
Yeah, that's right.
You can bid. You can bid on Titus.
To own us.
Bid at TitusO'Reilly.com to own our brand, our image, and our IP.
Yeah, it's currently up to 10 cents. We'll start the bidding at 10 cents. Now, while the cricket is ripping itself apart and looks like going into real issues, the thing that cricket's always had a problem with too, they were the reason they launched the BBL in such a rush, the Big Bash League, was a lot of entrepreneurs have always been quite willing to come in and set up alternate leagues. Yeah. To cricket, like Kerry Packer did that, but it's happened a lot in India and the West Indies and other places.
And Warnie's trying to set. He did one in America, and they did reasonably well.
This would be very interesting if someone decided, well, if this strike goes on, set up. Don't worry about Test or Shield. The BBL's pretty. Well, here's a new thing. Yeah. This is what it's going to be.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the BBL now. You don't get most of the Test players playing just because of scheduling and what have you. Yeah. Whereas a new comp, they can have them all.
Benny Elias says that new Rebel comp should buy Channel 10.
Yeah, backdoor Benny. Yeah,
he really knows the way to do it. Now, the rugby union war has continued just as much. The ARU said, let's have because they couldn't get a formal meeting happening. Yeah. They said, let's have an informal meeting.
Right.
Which is,
ladies bring a plate. Yeah.
Well, I think it was more like when you ask someone out, but not on an official date.
Yeah.
So because you don't want to get rejected, so you say, "Oh, well, I'm going to be at this pub on this time. If you guys if you're around, might see each other.
Should catch up for a drink. Maybe next
Bring
week.
your friends, just to water it down." So that's what they sort of tried to do, and they wanted to have this informal meeting to outline their plans to cut a Super Rugby team. We both know it's probably either the Perth, the Western Force, or the Melbourne Rebels, and that has been told up. So there's this the Australian Rugby Union Players Association have brought on a board meeting that's going to have to happen in the middle of June at some point, and it's looking like it opens up the doorway for someone which we predicted last week.
Yes,
which is amazing considering we know nothing about this. But you know human nature, right? So it's got to come to this at some point. They're saying that it could trigger this meeting that's general meeting of the ARU, that's special general meeting, I should say, of the ARU that's been brought on by the Victorian Rugby Union and the Players Association. It could mean that another group of people could challenge the board for their positions.
It's just getting messier and uglier.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is the whole... We've got the cricketers at loggerheads with Cricket Australia.
Yeah.
We've got the Rugby Union Players Association at loggerheads with the ARU.
And the clubs, because the clubs. Two of them are going to get cut, and it's looking...
The AFL Players Association, I think that's all pretty much sorted.
I think the AFL have got that sorted.
That will get sorted.
I think the AFL are the one group that are actually... Yeah. The NRL are in all sorts.
NRL, hopeless. Soccer, just as bad.
Yeah, the A-League are not happy with each other.
And it's a real problem.
It's a troubled time.
They are troubled times.
Do you know what's interesting about it all is why the AFL going better than the others at the moment is what's always benefited them is they've had this very strong centre, within the commission is very independent and very strong for a very, very long time, and they've got a lot of money coming in.
Yeah.
So they've got some benefits that the others don't have because in the NRL have never had that strong centre until recently. So they're trying to withhold some of the cash from the clubs to use themselves to build up a buffer.
Exactly.
And the NRL clubs are not used to that. When the AFL clubs are kind of used to that and know that's the way the system works.
Yeah.
And then you've got the A-League looking at it going, well, they got private owners and they're looking at it going, well, how are we getting these signing these deals and none of the money's coming to us?
And it's like even horse racing, the same sort of thing. They can never advance the sport on a whole because it's run by individual clubs that all have their own agenda and their own wants and needs and egos and what have you. It just goes to show, for all the bagging of the AFL, the independent commission thing, it kind of works because it solves a lot of these problems and it gives them a much better not bargaining chip but a view of strength when it comes to the bargaining table for these player sort of deals.
Well, and all the clubs have benefited as a whole in the AFL because of that model, so they've sort of come to see the benefit of it. But it is amazing, like how
it's just, as I say, it's not a coincidence that just about every and it wasn't that long ago, only a few weeks ago, that the Olympic movement was tearing itself apart, which that hasn't sort of been fixed yet.
No,
it's just not a coincidence that every major sporting sort of body in the country is fighting amongst itself or with its players. So how it pans out, I'm not sure.
Well, I hope
the cricket thing blows up though, just because it'd be piss funny if there's no cricketers to play on
Some people
Boxing
just
Day.
Want to see the world burn, Serge. That's you.
I'm just still hanging out for that baggy green when I cross the picket line.
I am worried about the cricket not being on because what am I going to do all summer? Talk to people?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
I'm not saying that the stadiums will be shut. That's what I'm getting at.
They're just big bars.
We can still go to the bars at the MCG.
Did you see that in one of the cycling races in Italy, during the thrilling, it says here, 16th stage, Tom Dumoulin, he lost a large chunk of his lead after having to pull over at the side of the road.
Large chunks are pretty good phrase too.
He stopped as he was leading. He suddenly stopped, ripped off his leader's pink jersey, flung it off on the side of the road, and ducked down the side embankment to basically relieve himself. Now, I didn't know this, and he said he was in real trouble with basically stomach troubles and problems, so had not gone well. Probably some of the drugs he'd been on or something, if it's cycling, or the lack of, I'm not sure. Now, I didn't know this, but one of the unwritten rules in cycling is that rival teams will normally ease up in these type of situations.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that either.
Yeah, but instead, the movie star team put the afterburners on to sprint up the Umbriel Pass, which was the third and final major climb of the day.
And even that phrase too, the Umbriel Pass.
It's loaded, this one. Yeah. And basically got away. That seems odd to me. That I mean, the thing I don't get about cycling, is it sort of has these sort of niceties and rules to it. Like in the Tour de France, they don't challenge the leader on the last day. It's a very relaxed sort of ride in. And the idea that because someone needs to go to the toilet, everyone slows down. They don't stop.
To wait.
Like I could even understand if the logic was you all stop, wait for them to finish, and then resume the race to where you all were, as impractical and silly as that would be. But the idea they just slow down a bit, like who decides that?
Yeah, well obviously they didn't over in Italy.
They just stuff that.
I mean, was he on one of those bikes with a built-in motor? I don't know.
That drone could have caught up.
Yeah, well, as he said, and I read a quote from him this morning, he said, look, I knew how this was going to affect my position in the race, but he said I had to take a dump, is what he said. I had no choice. And, when you got to go. Kathy Watt had the same sort of thing back just after she won the gold medal back in, was it 96?
Right.
I think in her next race, she had a very similar situation.
The closest I've come to stopping a sport for a legitimate reason, and the rest of the group have agreed to ease up for a bit, is when my beer's empty when I'm playing ping pong in the summer down at the beach, and everyone goes, let's go get another one.
Yeah, settle down. Just wait a sec.
Anyone else want one?
8 pots, thanks. Just wait till I get back.
Yeah, I'm on this end, all right. So that's right. Now, we saw recently, I don't know if you knew this, Serge, but Geelong, the city of Geelong got a new bit of viewing infrastructure.
A bit of grandstand.
In the form of a new grandstand down there. And I think it cost them $500,000 or something. Now, $300 million from the Victorian government, because that's what taxpayers' dollars should be going to, is funding sporting infrastructure, I've often said.
And the new pork barrel stand looks fantastic.
Living in the marginal seat, that's what you want.
And as you said, I mean, that $300 million, could have been wasted on a school or a hospital.
Oh, yeah.
For the great Geelong area.
Now, if we think that's kind of a bit of a strange one, it's got nothing. No. It's got absolutely nothing on what's happening over in America.
Yeah, and of course.
The Las Vegas is building a new stadium. You might have heard this. The idea is that they're attracting, and it's been announced from Oakland, they're attracting the Raiders.
Yep.
The Raiders used to play in LA briefly.
They were the Oakland Raiders.
Went to LA. They move around sporting teams in America a bit. And so they have said, well, we'll go to Las Vegas, but you got to build us a brand new stadium, right, to attract us, which often happens to encourage.
We should do this in Australia too. This moving around. Why don't we move the Brisbane Lions to Perth? I reckon that'd work.
The Perth Lions?
The Perth Lions. No, but you still call them the Brisbane Lions.
Yeah, all right. Don't change it. Well, I think it would be nice to put a team in Tasmania.
Yeah.
Just for a novelty, kind of thing of it.
The Tassie Devils.
Not as popular as it is in Greater Western Sydney, of course. Now, the proposed thing, it's going to be a 65,000-seat stadium. It's going to be built west of the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino, just off the iconic Vegas Strip.
I know this. I know exactly where it is. The Mandalay is down sort of one end of the strip, and it's got a magnificent bar on about the 20th floor that looks right down the strip. And if you're ever in Vegas, I urge you, go to the Mandalay, get in this bar just as the sun's going down, and it is absolutely one of the great views of all time.
Why does it not surprise me that you know about the bar? It's my theory.
And Vegas.
Any place I name,
love Vegas.
Do you?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
Every place I name, you know the bar.
Yeah. Oh, look.
Or the pub or whatever's there.
The Mandalay. It's one of the great bars.
So the team was granted approval by the NFL to move from Oakland to Nevada in 3 years' time. A deal's been struck to pay for the $2.5 billion Australian dollars. New stadium.
This is the stadium, $2.5 billion.
It's $1.9 billion US dollars. So huge amount of money. It will overtake the New York Giants and New York Jets MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, which was cost $1.6 billion as the most expensive stadium in sport.
Yeah.
Now it says that some of the things that this new $2.5 billion stadium will have is they'll have a field that can move in and out of the stadium. So it sort of slides on tracks, so you can put it out in the sun.
So you push a button and the whole.
Yeah.
I mean, we're assuming it'll be grass or.
Yeah, so they can have grass. And so like at Etihad where they have to put those lights above it and try and mimic sunlight, and it never really works. This, you press a button and the whole grass just goes out sort of like on a motorised tray.
Fantastic.
So it can be out in the sun. Now, you don't want to do that while a game's happening.
No, perhaps not.
You don't want someone to accidentally knock the switch.
and have your quarterback get
caught under under an escalator or something. That's not what you want. It's also going to have a retractable glass dome roof. Now, anyone that's been to Vegas knows it's a desert.
Yeah, it's always pretty hot. Yeah.
Like, I think the last time I was there, it was 42 degrees.
Yeah.
Lucky you can drink outside as you're just walking down the street.
And the other great thing about Vegas is in those hot weather, even walking along the street there, they have these little misty rain things that just shoots cold water out over you, but it's very fine mist. It's very.
It'll also have glass windows that can be opened to provide a unique view of the Vegas Strip, and also it's going to have the ability to gamble from seats inside the facility.
Now you're talking.
I mean, isn't this just wonderful stuff?
But are they going to have space for yoga? All four types of salt?
That's right. That's where they've gone wrong.
Yeah.
So that's what $2.5 billion will get you.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting about it is the way the deal was struck is
people aren't happy about it for some reason.
Because the way it happened is in wanting to attract it, all the people in Las Vegas were like, voted for, yes, we want Oakland Raiders to come to Vegas, and
we wanted our own NFL team.
So then the negotiations have gone a bit pear-shaped for Clark County, which is the county, almost like the council area where the stadium's going to sit. They've somehow, and you got to remember, this is just like a council, it's not like the state government or anything. They've been flicked 40% of the cost of the structure, so $750 million in US dollars bill for paying for it. It's like one little county because they've somehow managed to negotiate.
A few sausage sizzles needed.
Yeah, the Raiders in the NFL will cover $500 million, so less than this little county.
Yeah.
And then also an investment from the casino mogul Sheldon Anderson.
They're always a Sheldon.
He came up with the $650 million loan from the Bank of America in the last moment. So I know he pulled out, so the team had to get a loan from the Bank of America. But Clark County, if you're in that council, they've basically been dudded with this huge bill and agreed to it for some reason. They just blindly walked into it. And Roger Knoll, who's an economist at Stanford University, who has done a lot of work on publicly funded stadiums, which is a big deal in America because they tend to all be publicly funded, even though the teams are owned by billionaires, and make the profit out of it. He said they've walked into the worst deal for a city I have ever seen. Basically,
haven't they seen St Kilda's deal at Etihad?
That's right. We're going to educate Roger Knoll about how bad that is. So apparently, what they're going to have to do, this like little council, and they have quite a few of the hotels in there. They're going to basically add a room charge to every room overnight fee.
But I'll tell you what, if you need to raise $750 million. Vegas is not a bad spot to be doing.
Put it on red.
Just go down there.
Well, there's no better investment strategy than gambling. We've often said that.
We've said that.
Horse racing being the best, of course, most consistent.
And as we've also said, I will not personally. I won't be happy until we have pokies in schools.
Well, pokies, I've learned. You win on pokies. I think it's set legally at around. I don't know the exact figure, but it's about 48%. The punter wins. 52% the people that own it. And I thought, when I saw that, I thought 48% chance of winning. Gee, I like those odds. Now, maths, I must admit, is not my strong suit, but I'm like going to win almost half the time. So how good's that?
And I was surprised that they can actually program these machines on how often they go off.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
it's all that
what they do in Vegas.
What they're going to make.
You were walking. There's another good casino in Vegas. I know a few of them.
They have more than one casino in Vegas.
There's one called Aria, and you walk in, and just near the front door, they have this one big poker machine.
Yeah.
And it's sort of your welcoming poker machine. You get on there, and I guarantee you, within about 3 spins, you win. And everybody goes, oh, how good's this? Let's head on in. And you get to the next lot of machines, and you're not winning too much at all. So they program them beautifully so that you can either win or lose. But as you say, 48% of winning, chance of winning, that's pretty damn good odds.
See, I've been to Vegas once.
Yeah.
And I remember ending up in a Coyote Ugly bar.
Right.
Which is based on the movie.
It's still there, I think.
And, it was, I mean, when you wander around Vegas, I did 2 days there, and I got to admit, after 2 days, because I'm not a gambler, so that takes away a lot of what you do there. It's just drinking. But if you want to know why America's going to, is falling off as an empire, it's all there in Vegas. What's wrong with America in the one spot? It's not a place I'd want to stay much longer than a couple of days. I
always say I love Vegas, but after 3 or 4 days max, you cannot wait to get out of the joint.
Yeah.
And I always meet these people who live in Vegas and say, how could you live in Vegas? And they look at you like you're an idiot and say, well, it's not like we go to the Strip.
Well, yeah, people who don't live in in the strip. It's very, it's just like in any country town over there. So.
But it is stuck in the middle of the desert, and there's plenty of bodies out in those deserts.
Well, you'd know.
Actually, they still take them out there.
Oh,
don't even need the shallow grave out there. They just let the coyotes and the buzzards pick them.
It's not even illegal. So anyway, good luck to Clark County in funding their $2.5 billion stadium.
Yeah, can't wait
Geelong's
to see
got
it.
nothing on them.
Cannot wait to see it. If the AFL rebuild Etihad or knock it down and build their own, I want to see them do the field that can move in and out of the stadium.
On the gambling from your seats.
Yeah, gambling from your seats.
Once they do it, please remember, gamble responsibly.
Yes, gamble from your seat.
Which means nothing. I love that, gamble responsibly. It's like telling an alcoholic, drink responsibly. Yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah. I was an alcoholic before you told me that. Yeah. Now I've managed to rein it in.
Yeah. Now just smoke crack responsibly.
So we've got footy tonight. It's Thursday.
It is too. Who's playing Geelong and Port?
Yeah.
Have you got spots in that new stadium they've got down there?
That's right. I think Port are going to be a bit down not playing in front of a castle. It's not the same playing in Geelong. They've gone from Shanghai to Geelong.
In front of 9,000 Chinese.
Yeah. Well, the Sun's gone from... they're playing in Alice Springs, so they've gone from Shanghai to Alice Springs. So who's booking there?
There'd be a marked difference, wouldn't there, do you think?
I tell you what, the only stat that's impressive about the Suns this year is their frequent flyer points. Everything else is just woeful.
Yeah, there's stamps on their passport, but other than that.
But it's...
and then we're into playing Thursday night? Just because
they've spread them out, they're doing a few Thursday nights this year because it rates well and...
but I thought that was more linked with public holidays and stuff.
No,
this week it's just...
I think they got like 6 or 7 across the year just scattered around.
And it is the Indigenous round, and that's when all the clubs...
So Dreamtime at the G on... Saturday night. I love Indigenous round.
Yeah.
You know why I love it?
Why?
2 reasons. One, it's a celebration of what is the oldest continuous culture in the world.
Yes.
So I think that's a pretty impressive thing. So I do like celebrating that. But that's not the main reason I like Indigenous round. The main reason I like Indigenous round is the people that get upset about it are exactly the sort of people that you want to annoy.
Yeah.
So when, the Andrew Bolts of the world get upset about it, I'm like, yes, we're doing, this is a good thing.
I saw some peanut last year. It was like a letter to the Herald Sun or something saying, why do they have all these stupid, squiggly Aboriginal jumpers for this one round? And that was it. He didn't even follow it up.
Yes,
and then it was signed, aggrieved or from Seddon or something. I think, yeah, that's a good point, mate. Why do they have these squiggly Aboriginal jumpers?
It's sort of complainant's question.
and the other reason I reckon it's great, I must admit, when they first brought it in, I was slightly a bit cynical, thinking, oh, do we need this? Is this just another excuse for a round where they can sell more jumpers? But then when you talk to some of the players, the Indigenous players, once you realise how much it actually really means to them to have it, you go, fair enough. Go for it.
I know.
And you know.
I love when someone will say, and it will happen over the week, about on social media especially, they say, well, when's white man's round? We've got women's round, we've got Indigenous round. When's white man's round? Yeah. And I'm like, really? Like, that's like arguing that the ocean's not wet enough. Like white men not getting enough recognition. Like, as a white man, I don't want white man round. What would it? I mean, you could argue they're all white man round, the rest of them. But
I was about to say 17 white man rounds.
Yeah, that's right. But even if they were going to do it, what would it be? Would it be like a bunch of drunk dads dancing to K-San on the middle of the field, spilling beer on each other? Like, what's our culture?
There'd be no squiggly jumpers.
No, it's just...
they'd be fluorescent
hypercoloured jumpers or something.
Yeah, high vis jackets. You know?
What would you do? It's just like, it's just such a ridiculous statement that this is like what people get upset about.
I do like the idea though of blokes just drinking beer on the MCG, linking arms and singing K-San.
And sort of spilling.
But only late at night.
You know that drunken white guy dance that you always see at like 21st or 40th,
Yeah.
And it's a white man on the dance floor, feet firmly rooted to the floor. Like the feet don't move. And it's sort of a swaying of the arms and the hips a little bit.
A couple of fist movements.
A bit of this, and they're not, usually they almost always have... A white man dancing will almost never give up his drink.
No.
It's like that's the badge of honour. You know how in Irish dancing you have to keep your hands to the side no matter what.
But your legs are going like battling tops.
But that is the rule. Like Australian men are like, I have to keep this VB can upright throughout this dance.
Yeah, exactly. I had a mate who he used to say, he had a certain level, he'd say, at which point, this is my criteria for wanting to punch someone. He said,
jumper punch someone.
He said, when you're at a party, a Midnight Oil song comes on and some bloke starts dancing like Peter Garrett. He said, all bets are off then. He said, that's when I just want to go up. He said, I just want to go up and deck him.
There are situations where you're allowed to, eh?
And you can't argue with that.
Yeah. Anyway, no, I like Dreamtime at the G. I've been to it a few times, and it's been entertaining to see it all. But when you do read the stuff like, I saw something written like I saw Cyril Rioli talking about it. I've seen Adam Goods talk about it before. I've seen Michael O'Loughlin.
Neville Jenner speaks about it very well.
Speaks about it well. Like, to hear it is actually kind of interesting, and focusing on a part of Australian culture, which is the Indigenous culture. It doesn't diminish the rest of everything. Like, that's the thing I don't get when people get upset about it. They're like, and somehow, they're like children, like, the focus isn't on me for 5 seconds.
Oh, exactly. But also the thing about it too is in football, strictly football terms, Indigenous players are generally, I know this is a stupid stereotype, but better players, and they're faster and they're more exciting. And there's just been so many superstars of the game who are Indigenous players.
The contribution is enormous. But do you know one of the reasons? I have a theory on why Indigenous players are seen as so good or are so good. They are so good, and why is in a lot of areas like the Tiwi Islands and various places in the Northern Territory too, amongst Indigenous communities, the percentage of participation in sport, because it is one of the, if not, you could argue, the only way out of some of these communities or the only area where they're accepted, because so many other areas are closed off to them for a variety of reasons, right? So I'm not, but that are so complex you can't cover in a footy satirical podcast. But I looked at this and when I was doing something recently, and, the percentages of participation are through the roof. Like of young adult men playing footy in these communities, it's like 40%, I think, in the Tiwi Islands, when it's like 4% amongst average Australians everywhere else. But in the Northern Territory, it's like 7 or 8%. So the reason you have is you just it's if you extrapolated the 40% or whatever it is at the Tiwi Island participation in playing footy across the general Australian public, across all Australians, the amount of people playing AFL would just explode. Like, it's just disproportionately represented. So basically, if you're a young Indigenous male with any shred of talent, you're going to get a chance to play footy. Yeah. And it is a chance, and you're probably going to stick at it because it's one way to be recognised and get positive feedback and achieve. Yeah. And it's as much because they're shut out of other areas. You know, like that's why it's so a big deal for them, you know, like why they get that thing and people recognise it. And so it's amazing how much they, as a group, they're not one homogenous group, but it is amazing as a group, Indigenous Australia, just how much they play footy compared to the general public, you know, like, and for some of those reasons. So it's a huge thing. Yeah.
The old Indigenous round. I mean, it is one of the big. I've never been to Dreamtime at the G, but
it's great. I love when they turn the lights out.
I was about to say, for all the much reasons we bag the AFL and for their rule changes and all the things they get wrong. You know, one thing they do get right is pre-match ceremonies, I reckon. Yeah,
like Anzac Day.
Anzac Day, Dreamtime at the G.
Except for grand final.
Yeah, except for, you know.
Well, that's why I find it hard with the grand final. Like, why get
they're talking about getting the Killers this year.
Yeah.
They're negotiating with the Killers.
But see, why does it always have to be a musical thing in a huge stadium where it's daylight when things like the Anzac Day one work so well? Now, I know you can't do that exactly, but there must be things there must be rituals or something they can come up with.
I remember when they had 400 goal umpires on the ground.
See, I like the Rocker Stedford stuff because it's so, when they had all 400 kids all holding up different coloured cardboards and it would form something crappy. Yeah. And the club
and they'd get it wrong. You know?
I want to see that because it's just terrible.
You know, when they did it one year where they pulled down the big piece of fabric printed with a player's face on it or something down across the crowd, and you knew it was all right. Somebody was going to muck it up somehow. That is.
Hey, here's an idea. Yeah. Get a bunch of dads all holding beers dancing to K-San in the middle of...
Now you're talking. Oh, no, Barnesy will do it.
We're here with ideas, AFL, if you're listening.
Just feel free to call.
Oh, Serge, well, we're going to see each other again on Monday. We back. Will. Thanks to everyone for tuning in again. And thank you. I want to say a big thank you. We asked last week, or on Tuesday, for everyone to go on and rate us on iTunes if they hadn't already, or leave comments. And quite a few people did, so... Thank you. It helps us get the word out.
It does.
To people. And once again, thank you to our supporters for making this happen. We did make it clear. We didn't make it super clear. We did sort of announce it, but the winner of the T-shirt last week.
That's right.
Was the question about should Richmond change their theme song to "Hurt" by Johnny Cash. So I've gotten in touch with that person.
Yeah, that was a very good question.
We did sort of announce it when they said that. We said they were the club S leader, but I don't think as we always do, we often forget to make that clear at the end. So, but that's what Thursdays are for.
Yeah.
Anyway,
clean up the loose ends. Yeah.
That's right. All right. Well, we'll see you on Monday, everyone.
We will.
Have a great weekend.